The WNBA has always been a league built on perseverance, passion, and purpose. But this season, that purpose has been buried under the weight of controversy so heavy it's shaken the very foundation of women's basketball. What started as whispers about bad officiating and inconsistent calls has exploded into something far darker. A full-blown federal investigation that could alter the league forever. The FBI's involvement isn't just a headline. It's a sign that the WNBA's chaos has crossed into uncharted territory. It began innocently enough, or at least it seemed that way. A hard foul here, a questionable no call there. But for Caitlin Clark, the league's newest superstar and biggest media draw, the hits weren't just physical, they were systematic. Game after game, she took contact that should have drawn whistles, only to see referees turn away. At first, fans chalked it up to rookie treatment, a rite of passage in the pros. But when clips began circulating online of Clark being shoved, grabbed, and tackled without penalty, the narrative shifted. The fans weren't imagining things. The referees were letting it happen, and that silence spoke volumes. Soon, journalists began asking the same questions fans had been screaming for months. Was Caitlin Clark being targeted? And if so, why wasn't anyone protecting her? What should have been a celebration of one of basketball's brightest talents was turning into an exposé of everything wrong with the league system. Former players started voicing concern on social media, saying the officiating had reached dangerous levels. Coaches whispered that league officials wanted the game to be more physical, to boost excitement. The pattern was undeniable. And when the WNBA finally responded, the league statement was clinical, defensive, and dismissive, claiming that officiating errors had not directly led to injuries. That denial only made things worse. Because this wasn't just about bad refereeing anymore. This was about accountability. The fans refused to let it go. Hashtags like #ProtectCaitlin Clark and #WNBA scandal flooded social media. Every night, fans posted clips comparing Clark's treatment to other players. The evidence was impossible to ignore. Elbows to the ribs, forearms to the back, full-body collisions that ended with no whistle in sight. Even commentators known for defending the league began to question what they were seeing. One analyst summed it up perfectly. It's not that the refs are missing calls, it's that they're choosing when not to make them. And that's when the whispers turned into alarms. Reports began leaking that federal authorities, yes, the FBI, were quietly looking into claims of referee bias and potential manipulation of officiating assignments. It sounded unthinkable at first, but in a league desperate for viewership, it suddenly made too much sense. Caitlin Clark was ratings gold. Every game she played drew massive audiences. Every confrontation with rivals trended instantly. Controversy sold tickets. And according to one anonymous whistleblower from within the officiating department, that controversy might not have been accidental. That whistleblower's account would change everything. They claimed that referees were being encouraged to let games play out aggressively when Clark was on the floor because it kept fans glued to the screen. The implication was explosive. The league was allegedly prioritizing entertainment over safety. Worse still, internal emails suggested that high-contact play was good for engagement, especially when it involved polarizing players like Clark. It was a revelation that turned a sports scandal into a moral reckoning. If true, it meant the WNBA wasn't just failing to protect its athletes, it was exploiting them. When news broke that the FBI had officially opened a preliminary investigation, the sports world stopped cold. The Bureau reportedly began reviewing referee communications, game logs, and footage to determine if there was a deliberate pattern of bias or manipulation. Inside WNBA headquarters, panic erupted. League officials scrambled to release a statement affirming their commitment to transparency, but to fans, it sounded like more corporate spin. You can't issue a press release to silence outrage when the outrage is justified. As the investigation gained traction, new leaks emerged. Anonymous insiders confirmed that several referees had been suspended or reassigned pending review. Others claimed that game assignments had been manipulated to ensure certain officials handled high-profile matchups. Even worse, leaked internal documents hinted at discussions about balancing narratives to maintain competitive parity. That phrase, balancing narratives, became the symbol of everything wrong with the league. It was no longer about basketball. It was about control. Fans reacted with fury. Screenshots of the supposed emails exploded across the internet. One viral image showed an executive allegedly writing, "We can't have Clark dominating every headline. It's bad for parity." Whether real or fabricated, it didn't matter. The public believed it. Comment sections filled with accusations that the WNBA had rigged its own product. ESPN anchors, YouTube analysts, and former players all joined the conversation. What had once been seen as an exciting, rising league was now being described as a manipulated spectacle. The league's leadership began to crumble under the weight of the scandal. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert, long praised for her composure, found herself at the center of a storm she couldn't contain. Reports surfaced that she'd been pressured by team owners to take a leave of absence while the FBI continued its probe. Several senior officials resigned abruptly, citing personal reasons, though insiders confirmed it was all part of a desperate attempt at damage control. Sponsors started freezing deals. Broadcast partners demanded legal reassurances. Players began hiring their own lawyers, worried that the investigation could drag them down too. The league that had spent years fighting for legitimacy and respect was now teetering on the edge of collapse. And through it all, Caitlin Clark stayed silent. Her focus, her camp said, remained on basketball. But that silence became symbolic. She was now both the victim and the face of reform. Fans didn't just see her as a player anymore. They saw her as the embodiment of fairness, of integrity, of everything they wanted the WNBA to be. And that made the league's betrayal cut even deeper. As the investigation continued, the FBI reportedly uncovered messages suggesting direct interference in referee assignments for nationally televised games. That revelation sent shockwaves through the sports world. If confirmed, it would mean the WNBA's integrity wasn't just compromised, it was weaponized. This wasn't about bad referees anymore. It was about an entire system built to manipulate outcomes for profit. By the time the season ended, the damage was irreversible. Several officials had resigned, sponsors had withdrawn, and the league's reputation had been shredded. What had begun as a season of promise, fueled by record-breaking viewership and a new generation of stars, had turned into a cautionary tale about greed, corruption, and the cost of chasing attention at any price. The WNBA promised reform, new oversight committees, retraining for referees, independent reviews. But for fans, it was too late. Trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. The league had spent years fighting for recognition, only to lose it in a matter of weeks. The investigation's final report hasn't been released, but one thing is already certain: the WNBA will never look the same again. Caitlin Clark didn't ask to become the center of this storm, but she's standing in it with grace, focus, and quiet defiance. Whether she'll stay in the WNBA or eventually take her talents overseas remains unknown. But her name is now forever tied to the moment the league's flaws were exposed. And in a strange, poetic way, that might be her greatest contribution yet. Not just as a player, but as a symbol of accountability. The WNBA's dream was to rise. Instead, it's fighting to survive. What happens next will determine not just the league's future, but the legacy of every woman who fought to make it matter in the first place. So what do you think? Was this all just a string of bad calls? Or did the WNBA truly manipulate its own games for profit? Should federal investigators go even deeper? And most importantly, can the league ever earn back your trust? Let's talk about it in the comments below. And if you want more in-depth breakdowns of the biggest sports scandals rocking the game, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Because this story isn't just about basketball, it's about truth, power, and what happens when the game itself gets rigged.